Alright, this is the fourth beast, the eagle, part 2.5. I feel the need to make this video because there are just a couple of things that I do need to address that I have not addressed in the previous parts. So let's just dive straight into it. So one thing. So before I go over one thing, let's just read this passage real quick. In chapter 11 of 2nd Ezra's, there's a section that reads, "And there was no more upon the eagle's body, but 3 heads that rested, and 6 little wings. Then saw I also that 2 little feathers divided themselves from the 6, and remained under the head that was upon the right side. For the 4 continued in their place. And I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing thought to set up themselves, and to have the rule. And I beheld, and lo, there was one set up, but shortly it appeared no more. And the second was sooner away than the first. And I beheld, and lo, the 2 that remained thought also in themselves to reign." So, on the left side, you have the Michael B. Rush's and James T. Prout's interpretation of the 6 short feathers, and on the right side is my interpretation. So the adopted belief is that, at least on the left side, is that Donald Trump is the first feather, it's the first feather on the bottom, and then Biden is the one who, according to this interpretation, would reign shorter than the first. And then the 2 next ones, 3 and 4, would not get much of a chance to reign because the eagle heads would eat them up. And then the eagle heads reign. And then 5 and 6 come into play after the eagle heads are done away with. But yeah, I know in Michael Rush's interpretation, he says that 5 and 6 are the Antichrist and Beast. And I'll go why later, why I don't think that's the case. But for right now, let me just go over how I think it's going to play out, because I was not as clear in my previous videos about that. So here we have, instead, I have it in reverse order, so Donald Trump is at the top and is the first divided feather. And then we have Biden as the second divided feather. And if we go back in verse 24, it says, "The 2 little feathers divide themselves from the 6, and then the 4 continue in their place." So when I read that, I read it as the 4 continue in the place of the 2 after they have reigned, right? So for example, if we were to take Trump and Biden as an example, Biden reigns in the place of Trump after Trump had left office. If Trump wasn't in office to begin with, then it would not be possible for Biden to reign in the place of Trump, right? So there's an order to it. So I think you have the 2 divided feathers that reign first, and then they're set aside. And the reason they're set aside is because they come into play later. So first off, they divide from the eagle, and then we have, I would assume, is Kamala Harris after Biden gets kicked out, because the chances of Biden getting kicked out is, I mean, if you if you haven't seen the whole Afghanistan situation and how much of a failure that was, yeah, that was quite a failure. If something like that happens again, then people are really going to try and get Biden out of office. They'll kick him out, and then they'll have Kamala Harris in place of him. And then Kamala Harris would then be the one who is set up, but shortly appears no more. So, and then whoever comes after her, the second, would be sooner away than the first. So here Kamala Harris would not reign for very long, and then whoever comes after her would not be in office, would be reign shorter time than Kamala Harris ever would. And then the last two, and I beheld and lo, the two that remained thought also in themselves to reign, and we learn that they get eaten up by the eagle heads. So the last two don't get to reign at all. And then the eagle heads, they come into play, and then eventually they're wiped out. And then we have two feathers that come back to the eagle. And I think that's going to be Trump and Biden. I mean, think about it. Trump is trying to run for 2024 to try and get back in office. If Biden is ever kicked out, he will probably do the same. So, right, he'd probably think he was kicked out unfairly. So, yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense than Prout's interpretation. Because, I guess one thing I should mention, Trump is for sure a short feather. If you don't believe in the election fraud stuff, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do a video on why Trump was denied his rightfully second term. I don't want to get struck down on YouTube for that, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. So, another thing that I do have to address is Michael B. Rush, Prout, and others, they seem to believe that the contrary feathers have to do with something about going against a system from behind the scenes, or like they have to be against like some sort of puppet master. However, when the scriptures talk about the short feathers being contrary, it only means that they are different or not normal. It has nothing to do with being in conflict with the eagle heads. So, for an example, let's say we take 10 full cups of water and 10 half full cups of water. You could say, with wordplay, that the 10 full cups are contrary or contradictory to the 10 half cups because they're different from each other. So that's all it really means. I don't think the feathers have to go against the eagle heads in order for the prophecy to be correct. So I think that's just a misinterpretation on their parts. And lastly, Michael Rush seems to think that the last two divided feathers are the Antichrist and the Beast. But here's my retort to that. In 2 Ezra chapter 12, it reads, in one part of the passage, it reads, "And whereas thou sawest 3 heads resting, this is the interpretation. In his last days shall the Most High raise up 3 kingdoms, and renew many things therein. And they shall have the dominion of the earth, and of those that dwell therein, with much oppression, above all those that were before them. Therefore are they called the heads of the eagle. For these are they that shall accomplish his wickedness, and that shall finish his last end." So, when I read that, I think of it as the eagle heads are going to be the ones that fully ripen the nation in iniquity or in wickedness, right? They fill the cup to the brim, it's overflowing, it needs to be stopped. And it makes sense for the Antichrist to be around at that time while the eagle heads are reigning over the country, instead of them being the last feathers to reign, or the two that goes back up to the kingdom that's full of uproar. That makes a lot more sense. I think it's a lot more likely that that is the case. So, yeah, those are a few things that I felt like I needed to address that I had not addressed in my previous video, and I probably won't address as well in the upcoming videos in the series. I will be doing more parts, I just haven't done them yet. So, yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and stick around for next time.